Hello everyone, in this video we will analyze the poem The Last Ride Together by Robert Browning. Introduction. Robert Browning's The Last Ride Together stands as one of his most celebrated dramatic monologues, published in Men and Women 1855. Through his monologue, Browning captures the emotional turmoil of a rejected lover who, instead of lamenting his fate, requests one final ride with his beloved. As the physical journey unfolds, it transforms into a metaphorical and existential exploration of love, failure, imagination, and memory. The speaker, in his quest to preserve a fleeting moment of intimacy, uses art and imagination as tools to immortalize emotional truth, ultimately transcending the boundaries of reality and mortality. The poem resonates with multiple dimensions: psychological, philosophical, feminist, socio-cultural, and artistic, each adding depth to its exploration of unfulfilled love, existential acceptance, and the power of imagination. While the speaker grapples with the inevitability of emotional failure, he simultaneously demonstrates resilience and ingenuity by reshaping his experience through memory and idealization. A close examination of the poem, informed by these multiple perspectives, reveals Browning's profound commentary on human imperfection, artistic transcendence, and gendered power dynamics. Plot and narrative structure. The Last Ride Together unfolds as a monologue where a rejected lover reflects on his emotional defeat while requesting one final moment of connection with his beloved. The opening lines convey his acceptance of rejection with grace and composure as he relinquishes hope of winning her love. However, instead of succumbing to despair, the speaker chooses to transform rejection into a symbolic triumph, requesting a last ride together, where he can preserve one final moment of unity. As the ride progresses, the speaker immerses himself in sensory and emotional reflections, cherishing the fleeting experience while simultaneously transforming into an eternal ideal through imagination. He compares his emotional failure to the failures of human endeavors in the fields of art, politics, and heroism, ultimately suggesting that imagination offers a form of victory where reality falls short. In his mind, the ride becomes immortalized, and he envisions heaven as a place where the ride never ends, transforming temporal experience into eternal bliss. And now let us start the stanza-wise analysis of the poem. Stanza first, which represents acceptance and emotional resilience. I said then, dearest, since it's so, since now at length my fate I know, since nothing all my love avails, since all my life seemed meant for fails, since this was written and needs must be, my whole heart rises up to bless your name in pride and thankfulness. Take back the hope you gave, I claim only a memory of the same. And this beside, if you will not blame, your leave for one more last ride with me. Analysis. The poem opens with the rejected lover acknowledging his emotional defeat. Despite his sincere love and devotion, he has been denied the reciprocation he desires. However, instead of expressing bitterness or resentment, the speaker reacts with grace and gratitude, choosing to bless her name in pride and thankfulness. The line, "Since this was written and needs must be," introduces fatalistic acceptance, suggesting that the rejection was predestined and unavoidable. By requesting one more last ride, The speaker seeks to preserve a fleeting moment of intimacy through memory and imagination, implying that art and memory can immortalize emotional experiences beyond temporal boundaries. Key themes and perspectives. First one, Stoic philosophy, acceptance of fate and emotional composure. Then psychological coping mechanism, denial and sublimation of emotional pain. And finally, feminist critique. The woman's silence highlights her lack of agency. And now let's come to the second stanza, which represents consent and ambiguous hope. My mistress bent that brow of hers, those deep dark eyes where pride demurs, when pity would be softening through, fixed me a breathing while or two, with life or death in the balance right, the blood replenished me again. My last thought was at least not vain. I and my mistress, side by side, shall be together, breathe and ride. So one day more am I deified. Who knows but the world may end tonight. And now analysis. In this stanza, the woman consents to the ride through a silent, ambiguous gesture. Her bent brow and deep dark eyes convey pride and restrained pity, leaving her true feelings unreadable. The phrase, life or death in the balance right, highlights the existential weight of the moment, suggesting that this silent consent determines the emotional trajectory of the ride. The speaker's psychological response, the blood replenished me again, signifies emotional euphoria at the thought of prolonged intimacy. His sense of divine fulfillment in one day more am I deified elevates the moment of spiritual significance, suggesting that imagination transforms fleeting moments into eternal ideals. And the key themes and perspectives from this stanza are projection and idealization. The lover projects his emotional desires onto her ambiguous response. Existential awareness, heightening of the moment's significance due to its transience. And feminist critique. The woman's silence perpetuates her role as a passive figure. And now, third stanza, which represents nature's benediction and symbolic transcendence. Hush, if you saw some western cloud, all billowy bosomed overbowed by many benedictions, suns and moons and evening stars at once, and so you, looking at loving west, conscious grew, your passion drew, cloud, sunset, moonrise, star shine too, down on you, near and yet more near, till flesh must fade for heaven was here. Thus leant she and lingered, joy and fear. Thus lay she a moment on my breast. And now analysis. This stanza introduces cosmic imagery to symbolize the transcendence of human experience. The speaker compares his emotional state of nature's divine benediction, where sunset, moonrise, and starlight converge to symbolize emotional fulfillment. The phrase, till flesh must fade for heaven was here, suggests that the intensity of emotional closeness makes the moment feel sublime and otherworldly. The woman's physical closeness, thus lay she a moment on my breast, symbolizes the ephemeral nature of intimacy, reinforcing the fleeting nature of earthly experiences. And key themes and perspectives in this stanza are symbolic transcendence, the ride elevated to cosmic and divine significance, artistic idealization, nature mirrors emotional intensity and idealization, And finally, feminist critique. The woman remains a passive participant, her emotions reduced to symbols of male desire. And now, fourth stanza, which represents reflection and emotional liberation. Then we began to write. My soul smoothed itself out a long crammed scroll, freshening and fluttering in the wind. Last hopes already lay behind. What need to strive with a life hoary? Had I said that, had I done this, so might I gain, so might I miss. Might she have loved me just as well? She might have hated, who can tell? Where had I been now if the worst befell? And here we are riding, she and I. Analysis. This stanza reflects emotional release and acceptance. The speaker describes his soul as a long crammed scroll that unfurls in the wind, symbolizing liberation from regret and emotional turmoil. He abandons hypothetical questions of what if and embraces the present, acknowledging the speculation about the past is futile. The phrase, might she have loved me just as well, she might have hated, who can tell, highlights the ambiguity of emotional outcomes and the futility of dwelling on the past. The speaker chooses to live in the moment, suggesting that present experiences, even if transient, offer solace and meaning. And now, key themes and perspectives from this stanza. Existential acceptance, embracing the present moment and rejecting regrets. Psychological liberation, emotional release through acceptance. And finally, feminist critique. The woman's emotional perspective is excluded from this reflection. And now we come to fifth stanza, which represents universality of failure and human endeavor. Fail I alone in words and deeds? Why, all men strive, and who succeeds? We rode, it seemed my spirit flew, saw other regions, cities new. As the world rushed by on either side, I thought, all labor, yet no less, bear up beneath their unsuccess. Look at the end of the work, contrast the petty done, the undone vast, this present of theirs with the hopeful past. I hoped she would love me, here we write. And the analysis. In this stanza, the speaker reflects on the futility of human endeavors, comparing his emotional failure to the broader failures of humanity. The rhetorical question, fail I alone in words and deeds, introduces existential irony, suggesting that failure is a universal human condition. The phrase, the petty done, the undone vast, underscores the gap between human aspiration and achievement. The speaker rationalizes his emotional failure by acknowledging the universality of human adequacy, drawing comfort from shared imperfection. And now, key themes and perspectives from this stanza. Existential irony, awareness of human imperfection and limitations. Psychological rationalization, reaffirming emotional failure through collective inadequacy. And feminist critique, the woman's emotional journey is excluded, highlighting the speaker's self-centered perspective. And now we have arrived to the sixth stanza, which represents critique of artistic, political, and heroic endeavors. What hand and brain went ever paired? What heart alike conceived and dared? What act proved all its thought had been? What will but felt the fleshly screen? We ride, and I see her bosom heave. There's many a crown for who can reach 10 lines a statement's life in each. The flag stuck on a heap of bones, a soldier's doing, what atones? They scratch his name on the abbey stones, my riding is better, by their leave. And now the analysis. This stanza critiques the failure of human accomplishments in art, politics and heroism. The speaker questions the gap between thought and action, implying that human endeavors often fail to fulfill their ideals. The phrase 10 lines, a statement's life in each, highlights the reduction of grand achievements of historical brevity, while the flag stuck on a heap of bones critiques the futility of military glory. The speaker contrasts these transient achievements with the enduring joy of the ride, implying that art and memory offer a more lasting form of fulfillment. And now key themes and perspectives from this stanza. Critique of human endeavors. Failure of politics, art and heroism to fulfill ideals. And then artistic triumph. The ride symbolizes artistic and emotional permanence. And feminist critique, the woman remains excluded from these reflections. And now seventh stanza, which represents reflection on art and poet's role. What does it mean, all poet? Well, your brains beat into rhythm. You tell what we felt only. You expressed, you hold things beautiful the best and pace them in rhyme so, side by side. It is something, nay, it is much. But then, have you yourself what's best for men? Are you poor, sick, old, ere your time? Nearer one with your own sublime than we who never have turned a rhyme. Sing, riding's a joy, for me I ride. And now the analysis. Here the speaker addresses the role of the poet in immortalizing human emotions. He acknowledges the poetry can capture emotions and experiences that others merely feel. The rhetorical question, have you yourself what's best for men? Critiques the limitations of artistic idealism, suggesting that poets often fall short of their own visions. However, the speaker concludes that riding's a joy, reaffirming his belief in the redemptive power of experience over abstract artistic ideals. And now key themes and perspectives from this stanza. Art and idealism. The role of poetry in capturing human emotions. And then critique of artistic imperfection. Limitations of artistic idealism. And feminist critique. The speaker maintains control over emotional narratives, excluding the woman's voice. And now we come to the eighth stanza, which represents critique of sculpture and music. And you, great sculptor, so you gave a score of years to art, her slave, and that's your Venus. Whence we turn to yonder girl that fords the burn, you acquiesce, and shall I repine? What man of music, you grown grey, with notes and nothing else to say? In this, your sole praise from a friend, greatly his opera's strains intend. But in music we know how fashions end. I gave my youth, but we write in fine. And now analysis. In this stanza, the speaker critiques the futility of artistic pursuits, comparing sculpture and music to fleeting experiences. He questions the value of dedicating one's life to artistic ideals, suggesting that life's immediate joys may hold greater meaning. The phrase, "You gave a score of years to art, her slave," critiques the sacrifices required by artistic devotion, while notes and nothing else to say highlights the ephemeral nature of music. The speaker contrasts these artistic endeavors with the simplicity and permanence of his ride, suggesting that experiencing life is more fulfilling than creating art. And now, key themes and perspectives from this stanza. Critique of artistic devotion. Art as a fleeting pursuit compared to lived experiences. And then philosophical reflection, questioning the value of artistic legacy. And again, feminist critique, the woman's emotional perspective still remains unexplored. And now we have ninth stanza, which represents reflection on fate and future possibilities. Who knows what's fit for us? Had fate proposed bliss, here should sublimate my being. Had I signed the bond, still one must lead some life beyond. Have a bliss to die with, dim descried. This foot once planted on the goal, this glory garland round my soul. Could I descry such? Try and test. I sink back shuddering from the quest. Earth being so good, would heaven seem best? Now heaven and she are beyond this ride. And now context of the stanza. In this stanza, the speaker contemplates the uncertainty of fate and the possibility of eternal bliss. He acknowledges that even if he had attained emotional fulfillment, he would still have to look beyond life for lasting contentment. The line, earth being so good, would heaven seem best, questions the desirability of eternal bliss, suggesting that life's fleeting joys may surpass eternal perfection. The phrase, heaven and she are beyond this ride, signifies emotional closure, where the ride becomes a symbolic boundary between life and imagined eternity. And now, key themes and perspectives from this stanza. Existential eternity, questioning the desirability of eternal bliss. And then, psychological closure, accepting the limits of human experiences. And yet again, feminist critique, the woman remains a symbol of idealized fulfillment, her emotional complexity unexplored. And now finally we have reached the 10th and last stanza of the poem, which represents eternalizing the moment through imagination. And yet she has not spoke so long. What if heaven be that, fair and strong, at life's best, with our eyes upturned, whither life's flower is first discerned, we fixed so, ever should so abide. What if we still ride on, we two with life forever, old yet new, changed not in the kind, but in degree, the instant made eternity, and heaven just proved that I and she ride together, forever ride. And now analysis of the stanza. The final stanza envisions eternalizing the ride through imagination. The speaker fantasizes that heaven might be nothing more than an eternal continuation of life's best moments. The phrase, the instant made eternity, encapsulates the power of imagination to suspend time, allowing the speaker to immortalize fleeting experiences. His idealized vision of eternal unity with his beloved reflects Platonic idealism, where imagination transforms reality into a timeless ideal. And the key themes or perspectives of this stanza: imaginative transcendence, eternalizing transient beauty through memory. And then philosophical idealism, heaven as a continuation of life's finest moments. And again, feminist critique. The woman remains trapped in the speaker's imaginative ideal, her voice and agency denied. And now, let us briefly talk about 5 similar poems related to The Last Ride Together. First is Meeting at Night by Robert Browning himself. Meeting at Night portrays the excitement and intensity of clandestine romantic encounter, where the lover undertakes a secretive journey across land and sea to unite with his beloved. The vivid imagery of the grey sea and the long black land and the blue spurt of a lighted match symbolizes the anticipation, desire, and eventual fulfillment of love. Like The Last Ride Together, this poem explores romantic idealism and imaginative transcendence, where love defies societal restrictions and the limitations of time. For a psychological perspective, the lover's journey reflects anticipation and emotional yearning, while feminist critique highlights the absence of woman's perspective, relegating her to a silent recipient of male desire. The poem's socio-cultural context reflects Victorian constraints on love and intimacy, where secrecy and distance heighten the emotional intensity. Second poem, When We Two Parted by Lord Byron. When We Two Parted explores the pain of separation and emotional betrayal after a romantic relationship ends. Byron's melancholic tone and stark imagery, pale grew thy cheek and cold, and silence and tears, capture the speaker's sense of loss, bitterness, and betrayal. Like The Last Ride Together, the poem reflects unfulfilled love and emotional grief, but instead of idealizing the moment, the speaker dwells on the emotional aftermath. Psychologically, the poem depicts mourning and unresolved emotional pain, while feminist critique underscores the woman's silent withdrawal, reflecting her lack of emotional agency. Socio-culturally, Byron's work resonates with romantic ideals of intense passion and inevitable heartbreak, reinforcing the trope of doomed love in romantic literature. And the third poem is Love's Philosophy by P.B. Shelley. Love's Philosophy presents a plea for emotional and physical union, where Shelley uses nature imagery. The fountains mingle with the river, and the sunlight clasps the earth, to argue that everything in nature seeks connection and unity. Like The Last Ride Together, the poem explores idealized love, where natural and cosmic forces mirror human emotions and desires. Psychologically, the poem reflects the lover's yearning for unity and a sense of emotional incompleteness without reciprocation. However, feminist critique highlights the passive role of the woman, where her consent is implied rather than expressed. Philosophically, the poem aligns with romantic notions of nature as a reflection of human emotion, emphasizing the interconnectedness of all things. And the fourth poem is Remember by Christina Rossetti. Remember is a sonnet of farewell and remembrance, where the speaker urges her beloved to remember her after death, but also grants permission to forget if remembering causes pain. Like The Last Ride Together, Rossetti's poem explores the intersection of love, memory, and mortality, where the lover's emotional experience is immortalized through memory. Psychologically, the poem navigates anticipatory grief and emotional acceptance of separation and impermanence. Feminist critique acknowledges Rossetti's empowerment of female agency, where the speaker asserts control over her emotional legacy. Socioculturally, the poem reflects Victorian attitudes towards death and remembrance, where emotional restraint and moral acceptance of mortality were emphasized. And last one is Ulysses by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Ulysses is a dramatic monologue where the aging Greek hero reflects on his restless spirit and yearning for new adventures. Unlike The Last Ride Together, where the love idealizes a fleeting moment, Ulysses rejects stagnation and seeks transcendence through action and exploration. Philosophically, the poem embodies existential resilience and the pursuit of meaning beyond mortal limits. Psychologically, Ulysses' discontent with domestic life reflects a longing for purpose and immortality. Feminist critique highlights the marginalization of Penelope, whose voice and emotional perspective are subsumed by Ulysses' heroic narrative. Socioculturally, the poem reflects Victorian ideals of heroism and individualism, where perseverance and the quest for knowledge are revered. So this was the detailed analysis of the poem The Last Ride Together by Robert Browning. We will meet in the next video and discuss some other poem. Until then, goodbye and thank you.